A huge settlement has been reached with Coinbase for $100 million, hopefully creating an opportunity for them to pick themselves up, brush off their shoulders, move forward in the right direction. We have an article here from the New York Times that highlights more details of what went down and where things are kind of moving forward. So I'll have a link to this article down in the description below. As usual, guys, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Everything I'm sharing is my own opinion. I highly recommend you go do your own research. And I'll talk about my thoughts at the end. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this. Coinbase reaches $100 million settlement with New York regulators. So specifically, again, focus here is New York. The U.S. crypto exchange will pay a $50 million fine for letting customers open accounts with few background checks and spend $50 million to improve compliance. Coinbase, a publicly traded cryptocurrency trading exchange based in the United States, agreed to pay a $50 million fine after financial regulators found that it let customers open accounts without conducting sufficient background checks, in violation of anti-money laundering laws. The settlement with the New York State Department of Financial Services, announced Wednesday, will also require Coinbase to invest $50 million to bolster its compliance program, which is supposed to prevent drug traffickers, sellers of child pornography, and other potential lawbreakers from opening accounts with the exchange. It's the latest hit to the once high-flying global cryptocurrency trading business. Several cryptocurrency firms have filed for bankruptcy over the past year, most notably FTX, which was the world's second largest crypto exchange before it collapsed in November. Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder, and other top FTX executives now face federal criminal charges. The compliance problems at Coinbase were first detected during a routine examination in 2020 after the exchange secured a license to operate in New York in 2017, regulators said. They found problems with the exchange's anti-money laundering controls going as far back as 2018. Coinbase initially agreed to hire an independent consultant to help overhaul its day-to-day operations so that they met requirements set by anti-money laundering laws to know the identities of customers and monitor their behavior for suspicious activity. But that did not fix the company's problems, and regulators opened a formal investigation in 2021. The exchange had fallen behind on two key operations: digging deeper into the backgrounds of customers whose identities seemed murky at first glance and following up on the suspicious activity alerts that its internal monitoring system generated. By late 2021, Coinbase had a backlog of more than 100,000 alerts about potential suspicious customer transactions that were not being properly examined, according to the Department of Financial Services. Regulators also found that Coinbase performed only the most rudimentary know your customer checks on people before letting them open accounts. The exchange treated customer background checks as a, quote, simple check-the-box exercise, they said. In one instance, Coinbase unwittingly helped a digital thief steal $150 million from an unnamed company by claiming to be an employee of that company when opening a Coinbase account. The company's procedures in vetting the backgrounds of customers were so inadequate that early last year, regulators ordered Coinbase to hire an outside monitor, separate from the independent consultant the firm had previously agreed to hire, to oversee its compliance even as the formal investigation was underway. We found failures that really warranted putting in place an independent monitor rather than wait for a settlement. Adrienne A. Harris, New York State's Superintendent of Financial Services, said in an interview, "We have been very outspoken about illicit financing concerns in the space. It is why our framework holds crypto companies to the same standard as for banks. Coinbase remains committed to being a leader and role model in the crypto space, and this means partnering with regulators when it comes to compliance in other areas." The company's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, wrote in a blog post on its website on Wednesday. Shares of Coinbase rose 12% on Wednesday, closing at nearly $38. The settlement, which says Coinbase is still moving too slowly in its efforts to review its older accounts for suspicious features, will require the exchange to work with the monitor for at least another year as it puts in place systems to improve its compliance operation. New York regulators did not identify the monitor. Ms. Harris said Coinbase's compliance department had failed to keep up with the exchange's rapid growth. Founded in San Francisco in 2012, Coinbase has a market capitalization of more than $7.6 billion and is the largest crypto trading platform based in the United States, with 100 million users worldwide. Most of its peers are based in jurisdictions where regulations are typically lighter. FTX, for example, was based in the Bahamas. but the U.S. authorities have long worried about the cryptocurrency industry's potential to weaken global anti-money laundering protections because, for years, industry leaders prided themselves on their efforts to evade regulation. The industry itself sprang into existence without the oversight and scrutiny that are routine for banks, brokerages, insurance firms, and investment firms. Over the past decade, state and federal authorities have taken whatever steps they could to bring exchanges like Coinbase and its overseas peers into line. New York was one of the first states to require crypto firms to obtain licenses before seeking business from state customers, known as BIT licenses. To date, the state has issued roughly 30. In August, the Department of Financial Services fined the crypto trading arm of the financial brokerage Robinhood $30 million for violating a host of financial regulations, including anti-money laundering laws. In November, the Treasury Department announced a settlement with another U.S.-based exchange, Kraken, over claims that the trading services it provided to customers who appeared to be in Iran may have violated U.S. sanctions. According to the Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Control, Kraken enabled around $1.7 million in transactions over 4 years. It agreed to pay over $360,000 to settle the matter. Federal prosecutors have also been examining whether overseas firms are properly screening the backgrounds of customers. The authorities are investigating potential anti-money laundering violations by Binance, the world's largest crypto trading exchange, according to news reports and a person familiar with the matter. Until the fall of 2021, Binance allowed customers making deposits under a certain amount to open accounts without being subjected to a rigorous identity verification process. Binance's erstwhile rival, FTX, was also being investigated by failing to follow anti-money laundering rules. Federal prosecutors in New York have charged Mr. Bankman-Fried with overseeing a scheme to misappropriate billions of dollars in customer deposits at FTX. Coinbase recently sought to distinguish itself from FTX. In one television ad, the exchange said the customer deposits at its firm were safe and secure, and that crypto investors could take comfort in the fact that Coinbase was a U.S.-based publicly traded company with regular audits and transparent accounting. In a November regulatory filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Coinbase disclosed that it had been the subject of an investigation by New York financial regulators into its compliance with bank secrecy laws. The company said at the time that it was cooperating with the investigation. In the same regulatory filing, Coinbase also said it had received investigative subpoenas and requests for documents from the SEC about some of its customer programs and products. We have seen this argument that regulation and an innovation can't live together, Ms. Harris said. But if you are a good, responsible actor, you should be able to still do business. Now, my thoughts on this. I think that a $50 million fine is a start. Got to keep in mind that there's a lot of money that's being moved through these crypto exchanges. What's really important here, I believe, is the $50 million to improve the compliance issues. As was mentioned inside of this, one individual pretending to be an employee with a company was able to steal $150 million. I mean, just think about that. Trying to steal $150, okay, $150,000, that's an insane amount. $150 million? That's crazy. You could straight up own corporations and things with that kind of money. And the fact that it happened, it's just absolutely absurd. So obviously, to help prevent those kinds of circumstances from happening again, you have to make adjustments to the system. People want this to be unregulated, but then at the same time, when they get scammed, all of a sudden now they want it to be regulated, right? That's how this stuff typically goes. Especially if you get burned enough. If you're like, well, I got scammed for $10. Big deal. Whatever. I still like this all unregulated. Okay. What if you got scammed for everything that you owned? What if you got scammed for $50,000, right? Like, that tends to change the perspective view on these things. And just because it hasn't happened to you personally or hasn't happened to you yet, doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some security systems set into place to help prevent these things from happening, right? Wouldn't you like it that if someone did somehow phish you or hack you and they tried moving your crypto over to a centralized exchange to sell it, that they have security parameters set in place and they're able to freeze it? Imagine that, if they could freeze it and then get the money back to you. They don't keep it, they give it back to you, right? Seeing things move in that kind of a direction, I think, is something that's very important. Let us know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. Again, this is pertaining specifically to New York. New York tends to be very finicky about things with crypto. But let us know your guys' thoughts. I have a link to the article down in the description. And thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. Double shout out thank you to WeLoveSafeMoon.com, Victor Vegas, SafeMoon Oz for being higher level patrons. Also, thank you to my YouTube members for your support. And if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up, like button. God bless, and we will see you in the next episode.